I affirm the resolution is not a question of the implementation of an opt-out organ procurement policy, but rather a question of competing claims in the entitlement of organs at FFCs that the claim of one who's in need of an organ outweighs the claim of one who's declared dead and is not made their preference for organ donation. Known Rodriguez clarifies. The presumption of consent is not arise until a person's deceased presumed can not lost place the interest in saving lives above the individual's interest in autonomy, and thus the presumption is being made that they have a right to post-mortem body organs. Next, I defend affirmative absurdism. The thesis of absurdism is that any attempt of humans to find meaning in the world can never overcome the inherent meaninglessness of the world. If this is true, then it forms the basis of all our ethical judgments. There are 5 warrants. First, the human need for objective understanding of the world is incoherent because thought reduces the world to a sphere of human understanding. Thought reduces the inhuman world to the realm of the human camu modified for gendered language. At the heart of beauty lies something inhuman. These seals with the illusory meaning we cloth and make we seize to understand them because for centuries we've understood solely in the images that we had attributed to the world of basis because it becomes itself that strangeness of the world is the absurd human too secrete the inhuman the mechanical aspect of their gestures. Their meaningless pantomime makes silly everything that surrounds us. Likewise, the stranger who comes to us in a mirror is also the absurd. The mind's deepest desire parallels humans' unconscious feeling in the universe is an appetite for clarity, understanding the world. For a human is reducing it to the human. The cat, the universe is not the universe of an ant. All thought is anthropomorphic. The mind that aims to understand reality can consider itself only satisfied by reducing in terms of human thought. This stranger ethical decision is because all objective thought, even ethical thought, is a reduction into the human realm. They can never truly understand the essence of the world. Second, even if human thought could potentially grasp the essence of the world, quantum theory renders this understanding impossible. Kunder. The universe is a rational reason of rationality built on the premise of the following rules of logic. The universe does no such thing. Science, the application of reason upon nature has been exposed as not an all-pervading truth, but a game prediction. Quantum theory shows that the universe does very unpredictable things in small quantities and high speeds. The use of reason of the universe is absurd. This is also ethically relevant because any ethical theory inevitably attempts to apply reason to ethically guided interactions or predict them at the smallest scale. This is impossible. Third, death renders human quest for meaning pointless because death is inevitable. Meaning is illusory camu too modified for gendered language. The absurd cancels all my chance of eternal freedom. Before encountering the absurd, humans live with aims that concern for future justification. They think that something in life can be directed after the absurd. Everything is upset my way of acting as if everything has a meaning. Is given line the absurdity of death thinking of the future, establishing aims, having reference to all this presupposes a belief in freedom. Higher liberty does not exist. Death is the only reality. After death, the chips are down. Thus, any meaning which humans assign to the project is illusory, as the inevitability of death renders the benefits of this project is only temporary. Fourth, institutions are created to instill meaning upon the universe repeatedly failed. Only absurdity can acknowledge the persistent confusion as a result of these institutions. Other ethical theories discount realities of human experience. Genevieve. By the mid-20th century, humanity had witnessed the repeated failure of traditional religious, governmental, and social institutions. World War I and II, along with other conflicts, contributed to a sense of confusion. Camus felt the need to acknowledge the unpredictability of the universe. Confusion has not ceased. Contemporary issues regarding religion, the environment, economics, warfare, etc. proved as much as absurdism will always be relevant. Fifth, the paradox of God makes meaning illusory. Either an all-powerful God exists and humans aren't responsible for evil, in which case human actions have illusory and uncontrolled meaning, or God doesn't exist, in which case there is no being to put transcendent meaning in the world, and all human constructs of meaning are illusory. Camus 3 modified for gendered language. The problem of freedom has no meaning, for it's linked with the problem of God. Knowing whether or not human is free involved, knowing whether she can ever master the absurdity peculiar to this problem comes from the fact that the very notion that makes the problem of freedom possible also takes away all its meaning. Either we are not free and God the all-powerful is responsible either, or if we are free and responsible but God is not all-powerful. Thus, all claims to organs must be made within the context of absurdism because it forms our epistemological basis. This precludes other ethical arguments which don't take into account the fundamental epistemological basis, as other theories are based upon an unsound epistemological basis. Absurdism also comes before ethical theories aimed at guiding action because it answers the question of the resolution. The resolution doesn't ask for an ethical theory which tells the government what to do, but rather an epistemological theory which allows claims of entitlement to be weighed. Thus, I contend that absurdism gives more weight to the claims of the living and the dead for organs. There are 4 warrants. First, since the absurd bases all their ethical judgments which apply ethical meaning to the world, all conclusions must be based upon the absurd. However, the absurd only exists insofar as each human experiences the world. We must prioritize human experience. Camus 4. Believing the absurd is tantamount to substituting the quality of experience for the quality of this life has no other aspect than that of the absurd. Then what counts is not the best living but the most living value. Judgments are discarded in favor of factual judgments. I merely draw the conclusions for what I can see. This also always under any other framework. If people aren't alive, they can't experience the values which other frameworks assert. Second, since all humans are in a conscious struggle to affirm the life and meaning, they must apply the value they put into their own lives and the lives of others. This would render the claims of those who are dead to their organs illegitimate. Genevieve 2 furthers. Social actions, life-affirming solidarity, is certainly life-promoting. If one human knows that the human next to her is engaged in the same struggle to create a meaningful existence in an inherently meaningless world, she will naturally view the human as an equal. Third, the absurd implies that sensory experiences are the basis of all values and thus ought to be promoted above all else. Genevieve 3. If the meaning of human thought is arbitrary, sensory experience becomes the most trustworthy indicator of a real experience. Existence, sensory experiences, those that are life promoting rather than life threatening, should drive the creation of values to act in a way that will benefit another, means prohibiting the denial of another's right to the interpretation of sensory experiences, enhancing another's interpretation of sensory experiences just. Fourth, the only response to the fact that the human condition is absurd is to recognize this condition, the human condition, and the reality of death crushes humans, and only resistant death is logical response to this conflict. Blanchard. Resistance to the appropriate reaction to the absurd is linked to formulating an accurate conception of reality. Those characters in the plague that refuse to acknowledge the absurd display delusional tendencies. Dr. Reed realizes that the plague is beyond human comprehension because they recognize the absurdity of the plague. They resist Reed his reflection of the immediacy of the situation, refusing to try to understand the significance of the plague. I have no idea what's equated to me for the mind. The moment I know there are sick people needing curing, his resistance proclaims the value of life is a struggle against death. The struggle for life goes beyond the individual. Underview. First, prefer F interrupts on T and other interpretational issues as long as it has some basis in the literature on the boards of this resolution because A, ground challenging my interpret the topic bench is also convinced my AC mood and kills my ability to leverage my arguments in the next speech and fairly access the ballot, and B, class challenging my interpret the resolution makes the debate about what the round should be about instead of using the topic itself, which prevents us from engaging in any of the substantive arguments made. This heals education because we no longer need to understand how to engage these others' arguments. Second, drop the argument on T and other interpretational issues because A, it lessens the advantage with the negative pass from speaking. Second, and thus having the ability to subject the F to mutually exclusive interests. B, it allows us to refer back to substance and have an educational debate about the topic instead of having the same esoteric theory debates which have no application to the world. C, arguments in the F are implicit in terms of resolution, thus all negative theory interests are merely defensive and only reason to exclude an argument. Third, I'm willing to clarify my advocacy in cross-X means no abuse on spectrals if they don't ask in CX. Fourth, the resolution is a conditional statement as it specifies that the agent that ought to presume consent is a just society. In other words, the resolution is in the form if society is just and they ought to presume consent for organ from the deceased. This means it scap affirms because it would deny the existence of a society which is just and by conditional logic denying the antecedent branches the entire conditional truth. To be very clear, I do not advocate for skepticism in the AC. This is only preemptive if people try to trigger skepticism. That's that.
What does the AC advocate?
So that's coming out of Rodriguez.
Okay, what is the Rodriguez card? It just says that presumption of, so it reevaluates our decisions of who is dead and who's not dead, correct?
No.
So then what is the advocacy?
So my advocacy is that one who is in need of an organ, their claim to entitlement of an organ has more weight than the claim of one who has been declared dead to their organ in their bodies.
Oh, so just saying that, so do you defend organ procurement at all? For the living?
Well, it is not a policy action.
It's a yes or no question. Do you defend organ procurement or not?
Well, I don't exactly know what that means. I'm just trying to clarify.
So I'm saying, do we defend procuring organs from the dead in order to help the living as per your framework?
I'm like a little bit unclear on that meaning.
No,
I can just like explain it to you. Like I don't know what that means. I don't want to commit to something that like is going to regulate.
It's a yes or no question. Like, do you defend presumed consent?
Well, I defend presumed consent, but I recontextualize what that means.
Okay, so what does the recontextualization then mean?
That's Rodriguez. So my advocacy is that the claim of one who is in need of an organ outweighs the claim of one who has been declared dead and has organs which can be donated.
All right, so that just means that we're going to still procure the organs. Cool.
It is not a plan, though.
It's not. I'm not saying.
Yeah, it is an argument about weighing rights.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah. I'll make that clear.
Okay, so what gives you offense in the case specifically? Like, where do you show that?
The four arguments in the contention.
The four arguments in the contention. Cool. Let's go through those. So, the Genovese card just says that.
Which one?
It's the first one, right?
That's a framework argument.
The Genovese 3. Where does the contention start?
So it starts. I don't know. You can just control F this. I contend that absurdism, and you can get there.
So So.
I think after that.
All right. So you what is the thesis of the first Genovese, the wherever the first one in the contention is?
So Camus 4.
Camus 4.
So Camus 4 says that if we can only understand the absurd and experience that through life, that means that the basis of all our ethical and logical decisions has to be within sensory experience. If that is true, then we have to make our conclusions solely based on sensory experience. It would be illogical to say that there could be something good or worthwhile contained in death. That would be
experience?
Just like me interpreting stimuli in the world.
Alright, that's fine. I'll put the rest as flex prep. 33 seconds left, so 4:33 prep starting now. Oh, 212 left.
Do you have a way to get the speech document?
Yes. Do you have a flash drive?
Can you email it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll email it.
Unless anyone has a flash drive.
Does anyone have a flash drive?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
Alright. Yeah.
You did have a flash drive.
It's true. It's there. And now you guys have access to it.
I'm not very tall. I'm sorry.
No.
No.
Probably the sound effect wasn't necessary. That's probably what gave it so much lift.
What's the order?
One off AC.
Okay.
I'll talk about that when I start speaking.
Okay.
It's called Race K. Wait, hold on, my computer's frozen. Oh boy, okay, there we go. Whenever everyone's ready.
Yeah, sorry. It's still in
Oh,
second.
nice. I reset the time for the run. Okay. Everybody ready?
No.
Okay. Y'all ready?
No.
Okay. She is identified as Helen Lane. Often she has no name. She's called Hila, the name given to her cells, but her real name is Henrietta Lacks. Living on forever, shaped by the trillions of laboratories across the world, her cells went up into space and helped with polio vaccine, chemo. One scientist estimates that Hila cells have grown way more than 50 million metric tons. Henrietta died in 1951 from a vicious case of cervical cancer. Before she died, a surgeon took samples of her tumor and put them into a petri dish. Scientists had been trying to keep human cells alive in culture for decades. That was it. I looked up Hila in my encyclopedia in the dictionary. No, Henrietta. I worked her to a biology degree. Hila cells were omnipresent, but no one mentioned Henrietta. I searched for her, but only found confused snippets. I quoted Henrietta's husband, who said they had the disease, and right after she died, they called me into her office waiting to get permission. Henrietta Lacks was born in rural Virginia in 1920. She is considered the literal mother of modern medicine, but her story is never heard. This can be attributed to the social conditions that surrounded and shaped Henrietta. Born to a poor black family during segregation, Henrietta lived on the periphery of society for the entirety of her life's clue. T-Lim tells to prove that woman is carcinogenic, needed aggressive treatment. He and his staff would review all medical records for biopsies and patients who had been diagnosed with invasive cervical cancer. Hobson, like many of the doctors in the era, T-Lim used patients from public boards for research out there. Knowledge, many scientists believe that the patients were treated for free and the public boards were fair to use them as research subjects. But Hopkins has a large indigenous black population, so there was a dearth of clinical material. T-Lim thought that if he could find a way to grow living samples from normal cervical tissue, he could compare them, but most of the cells died quickly. Researchers didn't care what kind of tissue they lose as long as they came from a person. T-Lim began collecting samples for anyone with cervical cancer, including Henrietta. After Jones got Henrietta's biopsy, he called her. Henrietta was called straight to the admission just in time. A form for an operation permitted. Henrietta is unconscious. The surgeon prepared to treat her for a tumor, but for first, no one thought that and asked her if they wanted to be a donor. Warren picked up the sharp knife and carved 2 diamond-shaped pieces out of tissue from Henrietta's cervix. The patient tolerated the procedure well and left the operating room in good condition. Unfortunately, the system of exploitation and violence has advanced to the present day, where the majority of cases of presumed consent are still black and brown bodies. The organ procurement disproportionately affects minorities by capitalizing on violent crime. Don't let him say that he doesn't link it to the case, because I asked him cross-examination if he defends organ procurement, so this means he still defends the system. Why my African-American respondents are still 3 times less likely to know the person who donated organs? And Caucasian respondents, one of the barriers to donation has been the distrust of the system. One mechanism for increasing the supply of organ donation substantiates the fears of exploitative treatment. This is presumed consent. Presumed consent laws disproportionately affect African-Americans and Latinos. 72% of autopsies were performed on homicide victims. Young black and Latino women are greater risk for being victims of violent crime, raising the chance that their bodies will become before the coroners. Only 80% of those were presumed African-American Latinos, and only 16% were Caucasian. This also means his affluence, because it presumes a dichotomy between life and death. We're predicated on the notion of biological death. But the black body will always be socially dead, and the alternative is genealogical investigations, the foundations of organ procurement, and anti-black system. Their genealogy can facilitate a counter history that destabilizes white supremacy by uncovering the various limits and refusing whiteness as the ability to maintain dominance through the obfuscation of historiography. He also linked to the decay because the conception of existentialism does not include the black body. So when he says that we can't look to things like empirics, it only makes him able to use the black body even more. So don't let him say that this is the antidote for the genealogical examination of whiteness involves showing how whiteness is not given the historical emergence of treating itself as unmarked as whiteness conceals its status because of his presumed ahistorical givenness of the appropriate tolerance for the genealogical investigation. Genealogists as thought as subjects and institutions and practices which are thought to be exempt from change and development. Genealogy has practical consequences by demonstrating the contingent character of institutions and traditional history exhibits the creation of a possibility for altering them. The hegemony of whiteness is contingent upon its capacity to conceal or amass its own historicity, and the role of the ballot is of the judges for the debater to endorse the debater who better performatively, methodologically resists systems of oppression. Civil society is structured on the notion of anti-black and social death as the unavoidable condition for existence of the black body. How related to this condition is important. His app also links to him because it presumes a dichotomy between life and death predicated on the notion of biological death, and the black body is always already socially dead. These arguments function as terms under your standard, also recontextualizes how we evaluate existentialism. It also links into decay because in the beginning of the Rodriguez evidence, he says that dead people don't matter. So this only writes into the mindset that we do not care about black people. That's Wilderson. In civil society, the terrain for the black subject is coded and wages are white. The structurally impossible position is a paradox because of the black subject and the vital political economy and over-articulation that has a crisis at its end. The program of complete disorder. We must accept the fact that there are no other bodily functions and magnetizing the abilities of the black body functions as a gap of gratuitous violence of which civil society is possible. Blackness in America generates no categories to the chromosome of history. Blackness is a sign of absolute dereliction. Whoever says rape says black. Whoever says black existentialism entails the fight for a social life in a system that has claimed them ontologically dead. Dubois. The Negro is the son of a seventh son, born with a veil, gifted with second sight in the American world, which yields him to self-consciousness. One never feels trueness, an American and Negro, two thoughts, two unreconciled sayings, and two warning ideals. The black body, this longing has led him to merge his double self into the better, truer self. This is an end to the striving, the co-work in the kingdom of culture, and the death and isolation, and the husband to best use their best powers and latent genius. This also means it's key to sensory perception to make sure that black people are included within the sphere, because it is a prerequisite to even talking about existentialism, because these people are barred from even participating in society, and the critical analysis of race is also key in the context of presumed consent. Jacobs' cooperative communicative efforts are absent within the patient-healthcare relations that prevent people from negotiating on an equal field to begin with. Deliberation is not neutral. It has serious substance that comes to play in self-defense. This will raise suspicion. Our narration of the immortal life of Henrietta Alexa also is necessary for critical fabulation. Hartman, the detective here, surveyed a picture of the lives of captives as straining against the limits of a cultural history, makes a critical fabulation, throwing a crisis into what happened. The method is a recombinant narrative. And imagination cannot have license or visible in the disappearance. Disruptive attention is a counter-history that opposes itself, and alternative styles and debate have been foregone in the Aldi community. Smith, despite being some investments in the nation, many students are alienated in participation in policy. Alternative styles and debate, we are facing a cultural exclusion on a weekly basis. Countless rounds of competitive attempt to win by making abstraction for the discussion of the material, and in-round activism is key. Polson, the young people of emerged leaders in the debate community are focused on the uplift for liberation. These leaders have rolled forward involved with create change to action and develop platforms for specific things. And then on the AC1 commute card, this is only a specific reason why it links to decay, because we're not talking about specific humans, but we just take an ahistorical perspective. So I'm the best one who can even talk about education, and also too, there are still some objective moral norms. Clifford and Burke, ethics and myths of giving you reasons in human experience. Too much is known about the variability of human lives. There are too many inequities in distinct social demands and recognition of the oppression, and rather than neglecting the possibility of dialogue. So before we can even talk about more, we have to talk about this. Also the undercard, we still have to talk about things too, action and history, in order to get a better understanding of history. And also the Genovese card, the fourth one, I think that won the NC, is based on a flawed epistemology because it doesn't even talk about history. So this also means it's the best link to epistemology because it's taking the experiences of what we had before, which is necessary for an existential perspective. If he says that epistemology is so important to learned experience.
Okay.
Okay, everyone ready?
Yeah.
Alright. So I'm not entirely sure how the AF links into the critique. Are these a bunch of links about how existentialism
Yes.
links into it? And what is the specific link to the advocacy?
Okay. I'd say there are multiple links to the advocacy. First, the Weimar card says that systems of presumed consent disproportionately affect the black body.
Wait, but doesn't that seem to be talking about policies of presumed consent?
No, I would say if you still link it, I
doesn't?
made the specific analysis with the Rodriguez card because I asked you in cross-examination if you would still defend procuring arguments. I'm saying that the mindset behind this is bad.
I don't feel
right?
like I answered yes to that. That's fine.
And
So
also
what are the
there
other
links,
specific links to the
Okay, there are
advocacy?
other links into the advocacies. Also, you like presume a dichotomy between like life and death, which is only talking
Wait, why
about
do I assume? Well, like,
Because
why is
the
that not a
case-
dichotomy? Like what? Like either you're
No, I'm
alive
saying
or
assume
you're
the
dead.
dichotomy because like in cross-ex with the Rodriguez card and with all the
Okay,
other cards.
so
in the
if you're
case.
not alive and you're not dead, then what are you?
What do you mean if you're not alive?
You said I
I'm
assume
saying
a
this
dichotomy.
it ignores the notion of social death. So when you only talk about biological death, because you're saying that when we value presumed consent, we're only valuing the lives of the living because they're the only ones with sensory perception.
Why isn't this just sort of a semantic distinction about the words I use?
It's,
why do I deny
It's more
social
than a
death?
semantic distinction because you're not like acknowledging.
So this is just a link of omission. So the fact that I did not talk
it's not
about
only a
social
link
death.
of omission. It's also like you're saying that the only like conception of death that you're even talking about in the AC is the Rodriguez card.
Why
right?
can't people who experience the absurd be socially dead? Like anyone. Why can't that apply to anyone?
No, I'm saying it's also bad because you're saying we value the living above the dead itself, which is also bad, right? And
Wait. No. But so if my argument is that I'm only talking about people who are physically dead, then why would talking about valuing people who are physically dead over people who are alive be bad? Your argument seems to say that valuing people who are alive over people who are socially dead is bad. Why does that apply to people who are physically dead?
that applies to people because I'm saying you're ignoring the context of it, which
Why?
is also
Wait. So it seems
Because
like
it's
declaring
taking
death is like a
ahistorical-
medical. Why am I taking an ahistorical position? The Genovese
Yes,
one evidence
because I'm
talks
saying
about.
you're not-
No, wait, hold on. The Genovese one evidence talks about repeated times in which absurdism has been proven true based on uncertainty. How am I ignoring empirical evidence?
you're ignoring empirical evidence because you're not talking about notions of presumed consent, notions of what it means you value like the dead above the living.
Why am I not talking about notions of that? That seems
Because
like all
the Genovese
contention
card
stuff.
only talks about absurdism in the abstract.
Okay,
It doesn't even talk about presumed
because it's a
consent.
framework card. Like, I don't.
Yes, I'm talking. The Genovese card I responded to is specifically on the contention, right? That's saying like it's also a reason why you link it because the contention doesn't talk about this either.
Okay, so
it's not
it seems
only-
like it's a pure link of omission. I did not
It's
talk
not
about
only a
social
link
death.
of omission, right? Because the Dubois card also talks about how when we talk about existentialism, we have to acknowledge that there are people who are like ontologically dead as well, because the black body is not actually able to fully actualize themselves because they're
Well,
systemically
what does
excluded
that
from society.
mean? Why?
What do you mean? What do you mean? What does that mean? They are
Like,
they are forced to like
Why is it
identify
called social death?
because they can't even like construct an identity for themselves or have sensory perception because
Why?
of
Aren't
these
there
systemic
like
barriers.
thousands of things that are like associated with black culture or things like that?
I mean, I would say
Oh,
that
sorry,
that doesn't mean that racism doesn't still exist.
Right, no, I agree with you that racism obviously exists, but why does it mean they're socially dead in the sense that you talk about it?
Okay, it means that they're socially dead in the way that I talk about because of like the Wilderson card, which talks about how black people are specifically like stigmatized in a specific way as opposed to other specific racial groups due to the history of what has happened to the black body through slavery and through other things and colonization.
All right, the alternative is a genealogical investigation into the foundations of organ procurement as an anti-black system. Why is it mutually exclusive with the affirmative?
That's mutually exclusive with the affirmative because the affirmative doesn't take a genealogical investigation into like what
so
has
the affirmative
happened.
But why can't I say perm, do the app?
You can't say perm, do the app because it's not consistent with the original way that you have framed it, right? So that only proves that you're further like co-opting the black struggle by changing your advocacy in order to then talk about those things without initially doing it, which is bad for actually acknowledging what has happened. Your timing prep, right?
Yes. So do you deny the truth of absurdism?
What do you mean do I do? I'm saying that the NC is the best way to talk about existentialism in the context, but I'm not conforming to any specific truth values. What do you mean by
Existentialism. like, what about the app? Like, I know you can say, like, I don't know, Camus didn't even think he was an existentialist.
I mean, when I talk about, not existentialism, but like, when we talk about absurdism and like what it means to have sensory perception, what it means to like interpret the world like through any sort of like epistemological standpoint, it's necessary to understand the historical context, right? Because epistemological theories just say that we gain knowledge through experience. If people are specifically barred from like gaining knowledge in the first place, then they can never sort of position themselves in the world, which is the point of the NC.
Okay. 49 left. Okay, I'll flash this to you. One IR, V race.
1 second. Can you just give me a second to open it?
Yeah, sure. Where's going to be AC off?
Okay. Let me open it.
Okay. Everyone good? It will start on the bottom, on the underneath.
On the K?
No, on the app.
Okay.
Alright, everyone good? She's not done nearly enough oral the ballot work in the last speech. She conceded the first argument in the interview, which is that she has to accept my topicality and interpretational issues of the resolution. Otherwise, that kills my ground because it means that she can get rid of 6 minutes of the AC offense while I can't leverage any of those arguments in the last speech. Fairness is important because advantage and competitive activity, and you can not have the ability to be able to vote for unfair arguments because you cannot evaluate those arguments. It's also comes before all the critical arguments she is making in the last. It comes before all the critical arguments she's making in the last speech because even it is important to talk about this issue, you cannot even evaluate the critique debate in the first place. The reason that's why this is relevant around is that means that the only positions which are mutually exclusive with my advocacy are positions which say that people have a right to post-mortem bodily organs because the implication at the top of the case is what the advocacy is that people have a right to be, that people who need organs have a right to those organs. That means that your only thing that which is mutually exclusive with that is saying the opposite of that, the converse of that statement, which means that the critique is not mutually exclusive with the app. Your advocacy has to be mutually exclusive with mine. Just because you have links into my framework, there's no reasons why my framework arguments are unconditional, which means that your arguments would not necessarily matter. So go to the top. Alright, so she's not done sufficient work on Camus 2 evidence says that because you're ultimately going to die, there is no transcendent meaning within the world. She's not made a very clear response that she tries to extend to says that there are still some ethically relevant arguments on the ethically relevant standards on the AC, but the issue with that doesn't account for the fact that we're going to die. Even if we can't achieve something during life, we're ultimately going to die, which means that it would get rid of all transcendent ethical meaning. It also has implications for the critique because my argument is that literally everyone is socially dead. It's clear that black people experience a lot more hardship than other people, but my argument is that literally everyone is socially dead because you are crushed by the fact that you are ultimately going to die. You cannot construct an identity for yourself because at one point you are going to die, which means that means that I do have an account of social death in the AC, which means that it takes out your argument. Also, not use every single argument you've made in the last piece. Also, on the Camus 4, so extend the Camus 4, extend the Camus evidence in the contention says that the fact that we're all going to die means that ultimately we're going to have to preserve life because that is the only logically consistent thing we do. If the only thing we know is being left, that means that we have to extend our life as long as possible. Means that is sufficient offense under the AC. Go to the critique. The biggest issue with the critique is it's just a large length of omission, but does not have a very specific argument as to why necessarily I'm doing something proactively bad. Just because I do not mention the word social bad to the AC is not a reason why I did a proactively bad thing. There are probably a million other social issues which are very important to discuss about, which I did not mention in the AC, but that does not necessarily mean I'm doing a proactively bad thing. I'm just talking about an issue in the app, which means that I have no link to the entirety of the critique. All our arguments about linking into my framework are irrelevant because they're not linking into my advocacy. Remember, the framework arguments are conditional arguments, so I don't necessarily, they are not my advocacy, means that you don't have to care about them. But also on the alternative first, permutation, do both. You can have an analysis of the ways in which the black body is interacted in terms, analysis in the way in which the black body is related to organ procurement, while at the same time thinking that doing the AF is good. There's no reason as to why these two are mutually exclusive. The mere fact that I did not talk about something in my AC is not a reason as to why it's better to vote for her than for me. Look, if you vote for the permutation, that is a reason as to why you get all the benefits from the AF and get the things which are good from the critique. Also, my methodology of absurdism encourages us to be critical and resist all power dynamics and social structures. We have to be critical of everything. Genevieve, can we look at social implications in the absurd justice how to look favorably upon and participate in rebellion when it serves a just cause, the meaninglessness and destructive violence that can be feel is characterized as fascism and other forms of nihilism? Rebellion result entail that the deep questioning wherever necessary, the demolition and reconstruction of traditional power dynamics and social structures. These structures range from Aristotelian dualism to white privilege capitalism. Everything needs to be questioned. This also means that the methodology, the epistemological methodology that we have in the app is always preferable because she doesn't have any way in the negative in which we are able to actually challenge our beliefs. And the issue with that is that we have no way to be able to actually reject racist notions, where only absurdism provides that. Is a reason why I turn to her argument, because it means that only my advocacy is performing methodologically better. The fact that she is criticizing absurdism, saying it's a link to the K, means that this argument is still an advantage to the app. She cannot come up with this argument. Also, she makes a bunch of arguments as to why black people specifically are socially dead, but the issue with framing the black identity in terms of that means it makes suffering something that has to be reaffirmed over and over again. It means that her argument in her framing of the black body means that suffering is reaffirmed when you affirm the black identity. Another term for the critique.
So I have 212 left. Starting now. Did you read a fairness voter in the AC?
Not in the AC, I read in the 1 hour.
Okay.
It's not like a voter, but it's just like fairness is important.
What were the warrants?
I say debates and competitive activity, ballot asks for the better debater, so the judge has to, the round has to be fair for us to be able to determine one. You're typing, right?
Yeah. So the order is going to be overview. You're going to want to flow it separately. Then it's going to be overview, and then the NC and then AC. Do you want me to flash the overview? Or do you want to
have
just
like
look?
cards or?
Yes.
I can just honestly look over your shoulder.
Okay. Okay. So, is everybody ready? You good? His response is BS only links him super hard into the role of valid argument by trying to perm the AC and also going for reasons why fairness comes first, except that when we exclude ideas outside of the dominant discourse and debate, we alienate people who agree that a cultural exclusion which prevents minority students from participating, which is unique to ideal and generic pre-FIA arguments about it. So why I need to defend the Congress of the resolution only reinforces this exclusion and relies upon a hegemonic notion of the real world. This is also the worst possible harm to competitive academia because when we prevent people from even entering the activity, they have absolutely no possibility of entering the debate space in the first place. And also, his conception of competitive equity, we can never actually determine when someone's more competitive or less competitive equity due to structural skew. So these things come first, and even if he's winning a marginal impact back to parents, I still have a strong internal link back into education. And also, whose real world is he referring to? The white man's or Henrietta Life's? The point of his ideology for debate is merely a function of regime, which truth operates within the power structures of society, which only further links it to the K. Foucault. The truth is down outside power. Truth is produced by the virtue of multiple choice. Each society has general politics of truth, and the types of discourse and harbors it functions to be true. The institutions which produce it, truth is centered around the object, and immense fusion is produced by under control of a great few political apparatuses and as a whole social confrontation. And as an educator, your only role is to have the paramount obligation to deconstruct normative truth and the possibility of truth in a new world. So that's the only thing you have to vote on as a judge. Foucault, the intellectual, is not a very universal values, rather the person who is linked to truth with its factor in their position can take on a significance in the battle line of the truth and the role it plays. Truth is linked with power that sustains a regime, which is a form of modification, and intellectuals have to criticize the practice of ascertaining the possibilities. A matter of new truth and forms of hegemony. Also, it's a matter that the court does not specifically say the judge because they're still in a position to determine what the structures of the truth of the AC advocates for are legitimate, which makes the judge and intellectual leader in a unique position to determine the role the truth plays. And also, Foucault functions as an impact to the role of the market arguments because it articulates the performative problems the AC discourse. But even if you accept their argument that we need to look to the real world discourse to have to defend the converse of the resolution, I am the only one who's doing this because he's not showing you specifically how presumed consent does this on a cultural level, extending the anti, which is that the genealogies and counter history that functions to uncover the workings of the dominant discourses and the examinations of blackness to uncover the techniques of domination. Horkheimer also clarifies why critical philosophy is important. The social function of political philosophy is criticism, and what is prevalent. The chief aim of such criticism is to prevent mankind from losing itself in activities that philosophy creates the contradiction in which man is so entangled in which he must attach himself to every major measure, regardless of the good intentions they'll offer, but the happiness of the community is forgotten. And also, on the level of living experiences consent, why modern wishes that African Americans are disproportionately affected by presumed consent laws, which also means that we should not have any sort of form of presumed consent. He's going to try to get out of this by saying he's not implementing the policy, but I'm saying the mindset behind this is also bad because the Rodriguez Card, which is that we're only looking to the biological death, and the NC is also a prerequisite to having any sort of mindset of absurdism. Blum 12, mindset is the underlying beliefs and assumptions that we bring into a situation. Conscious or unconscious, it shapes how we interpret certain situations. If you approach a conversation with a critical mindset, it points out flaws and missing elements. When people are unaware of their own mindset, they remain in a reactive pattern driven by the beliefs and unconscious and unconscious disposition. Then on the NC1. Cross-applied wine wire, which is that when we have an ahistorical perspective, which is that when we have presumed consent systems, it only further marginalizes the black body, which is a reason he links it to K. He said it is a link of admission, but I articulated the Rodriguez cards as a reason why he links into it because he's still saying that he will defend procuring organs from the dead. So this also still means he links it to K, even if he doesn't have any sort of systems of presumed consent. And also he says the link of admission is specifically bad, but that does not respond to the Yancey evidence, which is that we need to look to a historical perspective because that is the only way in which we can actually break down these power structures, which is the role of the ballot. So even if he says that, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that links of admissions are bad because they take an ahistorical perspective, which prevents us from actually rejecting the power structures that the NC is criticizing. So his perm literally makes no sense because also when he responds to the perm and makes a perm, he doesn't say how he's better analyzing these power structures. So that is also a reason why there's always a net disadvantage of the perm, because it just allows him to co-opt the oppression of the black body in order to make specific arguments. And also on the tongue argument, he says it's worse because we can challenge our own beliefs through absurdism, but the black-white binary is the only way to look through the Smith of 6 multiculturalism call to have to go behind the black body minority include other communities of color with their multiple faults. With this first, it leads to an analysis of white supremacy and culture, politics of multicultural representation, but does not understand the New York structure of white supremacy as through the logic of slavery, gendercide, and Orientalism, and also obscures the centrality of slavery logic in terms of white supremacy, which is based on a black-white binary, so it doesn't make sense to just group them in with other groups in order to say why we have to look to existentialism first. And even if that's the case, his role about saying that we need to look to absurdism doesn't make any sense because of the Dubois card. So extended Dubois card, which is that blacks are fundamentally excluded from a system which allows them to determine their own lives and like what they have to do with their own lives. So it doesn't allow them to actually have any sort of epistemology or have an understanding of the world. So this also is the strongest internal link into his framework. So this also means that we have to look to this before we look to any other sorts of things. And also on the perm one, his perm is severance because it doesn't address the history, and the truth of it doesn't allow us to talk about specific things in the AC. Wait, never mind. So here's the way the round breaks down. He's not winning on the affirmative case because he's just saying that we need to look to a history of absurdism and as to why like it better helps to have presumed consent. But I'm saying that the problem with this is that it doesn't acknowledge the reality of social death. He just says that everyone's social death, but he doesn't take into account the unique way in which like black people have been oppressed. That's also coming out of the Smith 06 card. So there's no way for you to make a perm. Also, his perm is also going to be worse for taking a historical perspective because it doesn't show you specifically how we are better able to solve for these things and allow people to actually be included in the sphere of absurdism. So there's no reason to vote about that. Even if he tries to go for theory, I give you reasons like why fairness doesn't come before any other voters. So vote on the guy.
Okay. I think 50 seconds left.
Yeah.
So the overview you read, is that offense for you?
Yeah, I would say it functions.
Why?
Okay, because one, I say by like running the theory arguments as to like why you talk about conceptions of fairness are always worse for deconstructing the power structures. So like you should be dropped for that reason.
So I don't understand. How am I trying to exclude your argument? The implication.
You're trying to exclude the argument.
Hold on. So the implication of the app is just that, the argument in the underview is that your position is just not mutually exclusive. Why is that excluding yours?
You're excluding it because you're extending the spike at the bottom of the AC, which is that I have to only defend the converse of the resolution.
Okay.
Which is excluding the argument.
Okay. Okay, so it's going to start on the overview, then the app, then the critique.
Okay.
And we're good? She does not understand the implication of the argument. I said it in the interview the last week. The only reasons why I extend that argument is the reasons why she cannot weigh her critical role about it, is the reasons why she should not necessarily have to negate the resolution. The argument in the interview can call for after the round, just as you have to prefer apt topicality interpretation. The implication of this argument is that her arguments cannot possibly negate the affirmative because she would have to have an advocacy which is mutually exclusive from the affirmative. If what the affirmative advocates for is just a claim of rights, then my argument the last week is that the only thing that could possibly be mutually exclusive from the affirmative is her saying that the individual has a right to their post-mortem body organs because it takes out 100% of the fairness arguments. Additionally, she should have made these arguments in the first speech. I had these arguments that she has to accept my interpretation of the topic in the 1A sheet. If she did not make these arguments in the NC, then they are entirely due. Also, the arguments have absolutely no offense on them. They are just reasons why like deconstructing something is good, but the role of the ballot story is incredibly unclear. So go to the F. I don't even need to extend the fairness arguments to the bottom of the case. The implication coming out of Rodriguez at the top of the case is that my advocacy is that an individual who is about to die, who's about to die and need an organ outweighs the claim of an individual who outweighs the claim of an individual who has just died and is a potential organ donor. This also means that she has no link to the app. The extension of all the links to the app in the last speech were that she literally said this exact same rhetoric that was that you defend a presumed consent law. All of her arguments in the last speech are obviously talking about a policy implementation, which means that she does not have any links to the app. So you can send the Camus evidence out of the framework says that ultimately everyone is going to die, which means that our meaning for us as individuals is ultimately going to be transient, which means that the framework is true. And then you can send the argument of contention. That means that we have to extend our life as long as possible because that is the implication of the only thing that's valuable to us being our sensory experience. She has also not dealt well with my argument on the F that this also means that I account for social deaths, because my argument is that literally everyone is socially dead. I said that black people may experience more racism, but everyone is socially dead because you are ultimately crushed by your death. This means that in non-unique, 100% of the case, she has functionally conceded its argument. So, on the critique. The big mistake of the critique was not covering the Genovese evidence explicitly, what I made in the last speech. My implication of the Genovese evidence is you have to have some sort of epistemological basis by which we can reject different important, different repressive systems. That is through absurdism, because absurdism says that you have to challenge literally everything. She makes arguments in the previous speech that says that her critique is mutually exclusive from mine, but the arguments coming out of Genovese is very clear. It says that we have to use an epistemological basis of absurdism in order to be able to actually understand and reject oppressive beliefs. I'm the only one who provides a methodology for that, which means that absurdism is like methodologically better. She tries to say that black people cannot have an epistemology. That's unclear. So that was the reason why I best linked into the rule about. Really quickly on the permutation. None of her arguments on the permutation make sense. She just says that it is severance and it is bad not to talk about history and the one I see, but that is not the implication of the permutation. The implication of the permutation is that you can do the F and also get 100% of the benefits from the negative case in the last speech. Just the fact that I had some sort of link of omission in the F is not a reason why I can't say things in the F and omit some things, and then she can also talk about them in the NC. A clear reason that it is obviously not mutually exclusive to affirm and say that we have to have a discussion about the black bodies involved in organ procurement. So here's how you vote. It's clear that I'm winning off the AC, the absurdism of good Genovese arguments there, and also the permutation. Vote F.